This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so let me just quickly check my connections. Okay, before we getting started with the today's meeting, let's have a quick validation. I believe my screen is visible for you folks and my audio is clear enough. If my audio is audible, and in case my screen is visible, just give me yes in the chat window, hit me yes. Let's make sure that everyone's connectivity is good. Let's ensure that, then we will get started. Perfect. Give me yes, hit me yes in the chat window. Let's move on to the training. Perfect. Okay, that's awesome, folks. Let's get started. That's awesome. So the recording is enabled. Let's get started. Okay, so before we getting started, so I just want to mention 3 things. Okay, so please make sure that you don't leave this meeting. This meeting is going to be for next 2 hours. It's going to be a visual skill treat for you. If we're going to learn more about MLOps and also an LLMOps, talking about how you can able to deliver generative AI generative AI models to the production. A lot of things we're going to learn. So only if you stay till end of this particular program, we're going to provide you a free ebooks you can able to download on top of MLOps. Only if you stay till end of this particular program. And second thing, we're going to discuss more about MLOps. I'm going to try to introduce you to the world of what exactly the AI looks like for the next 10 years. And we have arranged the free demo on top of AWS. Only if you stay till end of this particular program, you can enjoy that. So let's get started. So before we getting started, usually I ask these questions to understand my lovely audience that we do have here. Okay, so usually I try to understand which kind of the sector that you're coming from, which domain that you are working for. So please do use your chat window, try to mention. So in case if you're a student, you can just mention you're a student. Let's say you're a data scientist, you can just mention you're a data scientist. You might be a data analyst, software engineer, DevOps engineer, cloud engineer, anyone. Please go ahead and mention who you are in the chat window. So let me just get some energy from you folks, so I can able to set my thresholds accordingly in my brain, so I can able to deliver the content accordingly. So go ahead, just use 30 seconds, just go ahead and mention so what kind of a work that you do. I would also request the folks who have turned on their camera, please turn off your cameras, otherwise my team would remove the candidates from the meeting. So please make sure you turn off your cameras. Okay, thank you so much for understanding. Thank you so much. Yeah, so that's awesome, folks. Thank you so much for that. So let's get started. Okay, so I can see there are more cloud engineers, I can see more data scientists, I can see that, I can see, yeah, a lot of DevOps engineers I can see here. That's awesome. So that's awesome. Please do mention what kind of a work that you do, like just mention your roles. Okay, so let me just get some energy, so let's get started. So yeah, so without wasting much of a time, so let's get started. Okay, let me just turn on my camera. I believe you folks can able to see me. Hey folks, yeah, this is Sharath. I'm a trainer for this particular program. So let me just start navigating my slides. Okay, yeah, so this is me. Obviously you can see on my slides. Obviously I would request others to turn off my camera, please, otherwise my team would remove you from the meeting, because it would just interrupt others. I'm just going to turn on my camera for a few minutes, that's it. Please turn off your cameras. Hey, this is Sharath. I'm a trainer for this particular program, and I'm a founder and CEO of a company called Citron Technologies. So what we do, you can learn more about us from www.citrontech.com. So putting it in a very simple way, I help professionals to become experts in AI or maybe MLOps. So personally, I've trained more than 5,000 plus people's. Maybe you want to become a data scientist, just call me anytime. I can able to help you with that, right? Or you want to become a master in AI, okay, I'm the right person to contact, right? You can learn more about us, website. Without wasting a much of a time, let's get started. I'm going to turn off my camera, otherwise it will interrupt your view. Okay, let's get started right now. So what we're going to learn in this 2 hours, okay, this is what exactly the highlights of this particular demo. So we'll be talking about, so what is really the MLOps is about. Okay, so what it takes to master MLOps. So how do you become a specialist in MLOps? I'm going to help you with that. So how does a job market looks like? There's a crazy numbers I'm going to reveal end of this particular program. Okay, what does the numbers looks like? Okay, I'm talking about what does the job numbers, I'm talking about what does the pay scale looks like for this MLOps engineer. It's really crazy number. We'll discuss that end of this particular program. Okay, so here is the task. Okay, before we getting started with any of the training, I would like to display this particular picture and I would like to ask some questions. Okay, it's a quick task. Okay, you know what is this picture is about. Okay, so I want you to describe this particular picture. Use your chat window. Obviously you can see this picture. Just describe what you can find in this particular picture. Okay, go ahead and try to find what you can find in this particular picture. Okay, I mean, what do you see? So what is this? Tell me 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 what is this? You know what is that? So try to describe it. It might be a silly task, but just go ahead. There's something that we're going to discuss underneath it. Okay, here we have Shiva. Hey Shiva, see, he says it's a dark park. Manikandan says looks like a dark park. Awesome. Aditya says collection of pixels. Okay, Aditya is more technical. I really appreciate Aditya. That's fine. Jimmy says peoples and dogs. Okay, people says evening walk. Okay, that's really awesome. Okay, okay, so what is this picture is about? Obviously, we know that. Okay, let me describe along with you folks. It's a beautiful picture of a park. There is no doubt about it. We can see we do have peoples, we do have a men, we do have a women, we do have a dogs, and a dog which is carrying a ball in his mouth. This is awesome, right? And not only a dog, we can able to recognize there's a different breeds of a dogs over there, and we can see a path where we can able to walk. I can see there's a lot of trees outside. There's a lot of grass where people are sitting and enjoying, but that's not a question what I'm really interested in. But my question is pretty much simple. How do you know this is the picture of a park? Who taught you this is a picture of a park? Why can't this be a picture of a desert? Maybe this might be the most silly thing, but who taught you this is a picture of a park? Okay, my question is this. Okay, let me just go to the next slide. I want to display the same exact picture to this newborn baby. Okay, a newborn baby maybe less than 1 year old. Do you think the baby could able to recognize the same exact things what you could able to recognize right now? Probably not, right? So a newborn baby could able to barely recognize his mother and father, but apart from that, a baby doesn't know anything else. Okay, but let's go one step ahead. So maybe if we display the same picture to this particular person, maybe again this particular baby could be, I mean, not a baby, maybe a child, maybe barely he or she might be in a play school or something like that. Yeah, now here we go. We do have some chances. A person could able to recognize something, but let me just put it a graph. Let's say, let me just demonstrate this as a growth cycle of a human being. Obviously, let's say the kind of a knowledge that we learn every day, it's exponentially grows up, right? So now let's say we start learning from our when we are in the kids. Obviously our teachers, for example, your parents are the first teachers, right? So consider that we are a biological machines. Obviously we born with empty mind, we don't have anything in our mind. So but we started learning things from our parents, teachers, from your school education books, right? And from your job and what you're doing today, right? So what I'm trying to point out here, what we call it as AI today, right? So we are the best example. So we are the best examples of what we talking about artificial intelligence, right? So we could able to learn from a data. I'm talking about a data can be anything. So consider that as a human beings, you consume a data in many different fashions. You learn things from your visual eyes, I mean through your eyes, from your from hearing things, I mean through your ears, and you learn things from a sense, smelling things, a lot of different things, right? So we are the best examples of what we're talking about AI. But let's go one step ahead. So today, what we're talking about in AI, so human beings trying to create something called artificial intelligence, it's nothing but, so whatever the things we have learned and whatever the way we can able to make a decision, because the best example is because you could able to make a decision for your future. You can able to predict what's going to happen in the future, because one of a good example is you made a decision to decide your valuable 2 hours of your time with me, saying that MLOps is going to be the next big thing, talking about AI, talking about how you can able to deliver your AI to the production. So you need to learn about that. That's why you have joined this particular program, for example. So today human beings are trying to replicate, so whatever the way we have learned the data and way we could able to make a decisions and predictions for the future. So human beings trying to teach the same exact things to this dumb machines. But these machines can only understand the numbers, but these machines cannot understand anything more than that, right? So let's try to get it with a simple example. Let's try to understand what we are trying to deal with, what we are talking about in AI, the machine learning, or data science. Okay, so it's all about the game that we play with the data. What do you mean by that? So we take a data and we teach a data to a machine. Once machine understands a pattern from it, we ask this machine to make some decisions and predictions. That's what exactly we do. You learn you learn how to walk. You can able to walk efficiently. You learn how to speak English. You speak English efficiently, and that's what exactly you're doing in a day-to-day job, right? So let's try to put it in a very simple example. Let's say I'm going to take some document, any data, right? A digital data. Let's say we're talking about a CSV file, for example. So what kind of a data I do have in the CSV file? Let's say I have around 30,000 data points. I mean, this data is worth of 3 years data. I'm talking about, this is called something called historical data. So what is this data is about? Let's pick up some use case. Let's talk about, this is a data that I collected from your home. Consider that I put up a lot of sensors in your home. Maybe I collected how much electricity does your washing machine, what a geyser, a fridge, any electrical appliances that you do have. Let's say I collected all the data. I have how much voltage that you consume, how much current that you consume, and how much bill amounts that you might have paid for the last 3 years. My goal is pretty much simple. I want to take this data, I want to teach this data to a machine. A machine can be edge devices, it can be a server in the cloud, or it can be any PC that you do have. So my goal is I want to teach this data to a machine. So machine tries to understand the pattern from it. How does you consume an electricity in spring? It can be in a summer, it can be in a rainy season. So it tries to identify the pattern, and then it produces something called an ML model, which is going to be a part of final end product. And we can able to ask this ML model to make some predictions. Let's say I'm going to ask this ML model to make some forecasting. What do you mean by forecasting? Let's say I'm going to ask this ML model to predict what's my first month bill is going to be. So just imagine this model can able to predict how much bill is that you're going to pay for the next first month, and maybe what you're going to pay for the second month, blah blah blah. What is the bills that you're going to pay for the next 6 months? Isn't it really amazing? So this is what exactly what we're calling it as at a layman terms. So AI, the final end product that we're going to use to solve some particular problem, right? So the use cases can be anything. Let's say you want to play with something called computer vision. So let's say I'm going to teach the pictures of a cat. Let's say this can be a picture of a cat, and this can be a picture of a dog, for example. I'm going to teach the bunch of pictures of a cat and a dog. Then I'm going to put a camera in front of my machine. I'm going to put a cat in front of my machine. So then my machine is going to say that there is a cat in front of your camera. So this is what we call it as computer vision. So anything that we can do with images and videos, right? So that's a problem that we're trying to solve. Okay, we do understand the process here. It's a game that we play with the data. We take a data, we teach a data to a machine. The machine understands a pattern from it. So then machine can able to make a decision prediction for us. Okay, that's good. Let's move on to the next step. Let's talk about what it takes to build a successful machine learning model. At least what is a minimum criteria for creating a typical, how does a typical workflow of creating a machine learning model looks like? Let's have a discussion. It's going to be really interesting. Okay, we do understand we are the best examples of AI. There's no doubt about it, right? So you know that we consume our data in many different ways, right? I mean, let's say we consume our data through our ears, through our eyes, through nose. We can smell the food. We can able to predict it's a biryani, right? We can able to predict it's a curd rice, which we don't like, right? Okay, I'm just kidding. So okay, so but we can consume a data in many different ways. Similarly, a machine can able to consume a data in many different types. Your data can be a picture, right? It can be a JPEG, it can be a CSV document, it can be a JSON document, it can be a text file, for example, right? So let's say we got a data, perfect. So then the first step in a workflow, we call it as something called data preparation. So what do you mean by data preparation? It's something what we do in a kitchen day-to-day life, right? If you have a mom, or if you are a chef, if you can able to cook a food, so what we do, right? So first thing we do go for a market. Yeah, we buy some vegetables, we buy some ingredients, blah blah blah. Then what we do, we started cleaning the vegetables, we started removing unnecessary things, we put some oil, some ingredients and masalas, all those stuff. Then you prepare your favorite recipe. That's what exactly we do in a preparation of a food. That's what exactly we do it in data preparation. So what happens, folks, a real-time data that you get from your customers, that comes with a lot of garbages in it. I mean, you will have a lot of missing datas in it, outliers in it, right? So we do have someone called data engineers who does data cleaning, building data pipelines to harvest the data. They do data cleaning and data preparation. So let's say they do clean the data and prepare it, and what happens next? So the next step in a workflow, we do use IDEs. So what is an IDE? An IDE is a software where we run the code, where we write a code. So for example, it can be a VS Code, it can be a Jupyter notebooks, for example, that very famously used in the data science world. So let's say we use this kind of an IDEs to write a code. What is this code? It can be a Python, it can be R, or any different programming language. Why do we use a code? What is the game that we are playing? The game is all about taking a data and teaching a data to a machine. So but we need to define what is that kind of a machine that we're using, where is your data is coming from, right? So we write everything in that code. We say that this is the machine that I'm going to use. I'm going to use Intel 7 processor with 16 GB RAM, blah blah blah, something like that. So we define the things, right? So then what happens next? Then we started executing this code. Then we pick the machine. So what is the machine? So we pick the respective server in the cloud, or maybe your own PC. We start taking this machine and we start teaching a data to this machine. So we might have something called training data. You might have something called testing data that we do use. So we train a machine with what we call it as a training data, and machine tries to understand the pattern from it, and we use something called test data to validate your ML model. So it's considered that you have a kid, let's say let's say throughout the year the kid learns as syllabus from the books, and at the end of the day a kid will have an examination in the school just to validate whether the kid has learned everything properly or not. It's an examination. Testing is all about examination that we provide for the ML model to just check whether this model could able to make a valid predictions or not. And if you're really satisfied with the model quality, I mean if it is really making a good results for you, so then comes the next step. So this is where we're talking about something called model registry. Okay, so we'll talk in detail later. So model registry is a tool that you use for versioning your ML models. What do you mean by that? See, throughout the life cycle of any model building process, you're not going to produce only one version of an ML model. You're going to produce multiple versions of ML model. So are you using the first version of a WhatsApp? Are you using a latest version of a WhatsApp? WhatsApp has many versions. Similar to that, when model making process, we might produce multiple models. So to version your ML models, we use something called model registries. So we use those tools to register your ML model. Then comes what? Let's say you have version 1, version 2, version 3. You have many different versions of ML model. Let's say you decided to go with the best version of ML model, and now you want to go ahead and deploy this ML model to production. So what happens next? So when we talk about deploying your ML model to production, each and every organizations, they follow different strategies in deploying a model. Maybe they want to Dockerize their ML model and they want to deploy to the Docker platform. Maybe they want to deploy to the cloud-based real-time endpoint. Maybe to the a batch prediction. Maybe I want to deploy my model to Kubernetes infrastructure. Maybe I want to deploy to the serverless framework. Maybe I want to deploy to IoT edge devices. Maybe I want to deploy to the mobile phones. Endless of possibilities, obviously. Okay, let's decide. Okay, I'm going to stick to deploy to the Dockers. Okay, perfect. I have deployed my model to the Docker platform. What happens next? Then comes your fellow developers who are going to create a beautiful the front end application. So they're going to create an Android application, maybe a web application. So where this can be a final client application, so where your end users can able to use an app to invoke a model that is running in your production, basically. So this is a minimum requirement of creating a typical workflow for creating a successful ML model. But this isn't actually enough. So we do understand what is exactly machine learning is. It's all about a study of an algorithm and the mathematical models where your computer servers progressively improve on a specific task. It's all about teaching mathematics to your machines. Once your machine understands the complex mathematical models, we can able to ask those models to make some predictions, decisions for the future. So as we discussed already, our data scientist, there is someone called data scientist. He will be using a lot of various different programming languages to write a code to teach a data to a machine. Okay, we do understand that. But the one unanswered question is, what is really MLOps is, right? That's a question. Let's start discussing about that. Okay, here are the real numbers. Okay, so when we are attending AWS AI Conclave, which is conducted by AWS, which is the world leading cloud platform, what AWS has said, let's try to listen to their numbers actually. Okay, so consider that we might have a lot of data scientists, data engineers, DevOps engineers here. Okay, let's try to understand what's really happening in every organization across the world. I'm talking about the current state of machine learning in every world. To understand this, let's say we need to do a time travel to the last decade. Are you interested in time travel? Obviously, still it is not possible in the history, but let's assume that we are doing a time travel and we are going back to the last 10 years. Okay, so what I'm talking about last 10 years ago, I'm talking about early 2010, 2005, from there, right? So every IT organizations at that particular time, they had a lot of data sitting in their organization, the useless data. They're doing nothing with that data. That's the time they started hiring data engineers and data scientists, someone who can able to build an ML model. I'm talking about they are largely focusing on building ML models, but they're not focusing on operationalizing this ML models to production. What do you mean by that? They're still prototyping. The organizations are there, they are still prototyping, they're building ML models, but they're not reaching their customers. They're not deploying their models to production. So nothing is happening. So now, if we talk about today, I'm talking about end of 2023. I'm talking about already 53% of organizations who are developing their POCs, they are already getting their models to production. It's going to take an average of 9 months for any organization to do that. And let's say if we talk about end of 2024, am I talking about next 5 years? No, I'm talking about just this year itself. 75% of an organizations, it's expected they will be shifting their models to production. Whoever just building ML models, now they will be getting their models to production. Okay, yeah, now you will see a lot of AI. See, this is where you need to look back and think. Just let's go back to 2022. Okay, around 2022 we're not talking more about AI tools, right? But you know that end of 2022, that's the term, that's where the chat GPT just came to the market. After once chat GPT came to the market, today each and every week we are talking about a new AI tool in the market. So we're talking about chat GPT, or maybe Llama from Facebook, we are talking about Plum from Google. I can just keep on mentioning that, right? That's good, but do you want to be part of that? Yeah, but still the question is, what is really MLOps is about? Okay, let's have a quick discussion about, let's dive deep into this MLOps. So what is really MLOps? Machine learning operations. That's what exactly what it stands for. See, MLOps is all about a set of practice that's collaboration and communication between the stakeholders who are building ML project. Who are the stakeholders? It can be a data scientist, it can be operational professionals. Obviously, they are not the only people who are responsible for building ML models. There are different stakeholders who are part of building this ML projects. Let's start from our data engineers. Okay, data engineers, we do have data analysts, we do have a data scientist, we do have ML engineers, then we have MLOps engineers, right? So the collaboration and communication between them, that's what we call as MLOps basically. So let's say by applying this MLOps practices, you can able to increase the quality and you can able to simplify the management process of how you build, train and deploy your ML models. See, MLOps, putting it in a very simple layman terms, it's all about building an automation to deliver your ML models to production. It can be deploying your machine learning models or deep learning models to large scale production environment. That's what exactly we're calling it as MLOps. So let's try to understand the MLOps motivation in the next high level. So as we know that MLOps is a discipline that sits intersection between the various different domains. It's an intersection between a machine learning, DevOps, and data engineering. That's what we call it as MLOps basically. So let's say this intersection of practices, when they are coming together, it really drives the value how we build, deliver, and manage your machine learning models actually. So as we know that MLOps as a discipline can be enabled only when you have the core set of practices. Like once you have a people, technology, and process together, only the things going to happen, right? Yeah. So we do understand that. So now let us dive deep into the challenges in MLOps first of all. Okay, let's dive deep into what are the challenges that we do have in MLOps. Let's say in the process of obviously creating and managing a machine learning workflows, we will definitely run into a lot of different problems. There's no doubt about that. So let's say we know that ML model building involves multiple steps. The steps like data preparation, model training, and model deployment. So not only we will have these steps, and there are a lot of things going to be inside. Basically, we want to stitch different things together. So for example, your data preparation step has to talk to your model training step. Your model training step has to talk to your model deployment step. Okay, that's good. Let's dive deep into each and every aspect of it. So let's get more light from it. So what do we do in a data preparation? You know that in your data preparation step, you might contain let's say one to many tasks, like maybe like we want to take a raw data and we want to eventually convert your raw data into training data, and you want to convert that into testing data. So we split the data here in the data preparation step. That's good. So now let's go to your model training step. So in your model training step, you might have only one step inside your model training process, whether you're doing a single model training or you might be doing a hyperparameter optimization. I'm talking about you might do experimentations. That means and so that as you are a data scientist, you know that. So you cannot get the best quality ML model most of the time in a one single iteration. So you will do multiple iterations, and the multiple iterations you have different experiments. So your different models, you pick the best model that you want to go ahead and use it for the production. So let's say now you have various different versions of ML models. Let's say I have version 1, 2, 3. So now you decided, okay, the version 3 is performing really good. So now you need to take this version 3 of a model. Now you need to go ahead and deploy this to the production. What's the next step? Yes, model deployment. In your model deployment step, you might have only one step in the workflow, or it could have many different tasks underneath it. For example, you want to create various different stages for that. Maybe you want to create a staging environment. Maybe you want to deploy your ML model to a staging environment, and you need to have another environment called production environment. So what happens? So once you have a best quality ML model, we don't go ahead and deploy it to the production directly. No, it won't work like that. So what we do, instead of that, first we deploy. Let's say we do have a version 3 of an ML model. First, we initially deploy to the staging environment. So this particular staging environment is not accessible for your clients. It is only for your internal team. So maybe you have a data scientist or senior data scientist, someone who is responsible. They go ahead, they only have an access to the staging environment. So they go ahead and do further testing. They check if the model is really working good, whether it is making good predictions. Are they really satisfied? If your data scientists are really satisfied, if they're really okay with the quality, then they go ahead and deploy the same version of your ML model to production. Then only your clients will have a new updated version of a model to the production. So even though you do have a various different stages like staging environment and production environment, but you need to have a more control over there. So because once you have a model ready, we don't want to go ahead and deploy to the staging and production automatically, but we need some manual approval process over there. That means you need to have an approval. You need to have an approval of your data scientist, maybe, or you need to have an approval of any different stakeholder who is responsible for approving this ML model. So let's say you need to come and click this approval button to deploy this model to a staging environment and to deploy this model to the production environment. So that means we do have a more different controls over there. So what we are talking about, there are a lot of different steps, there are a lot of different dependencies has to work together to ultimately build this and build out something that provides, let's say, an iteration across the life cycle, and also to provide an end-to-end traceability to track the models that you have built, and whether these models are going to deploy to the staging environment, whether it is deploying to the production environment. So monitoring is really important. So talking about not just monitoring your models in a model deployment stage, monitoring the complete infrastructure that you do have is really important. Okay, so let's try to get further. Let's try to understand the one more term that we regularly use is DevOps. So a lot of times we might get confused saying that, is this DevOps and MLOps, are they same? Probably not, right? So, but we do have some similarities. Yes, we do use some traditional DevOps tools in MLOps also. Let's have a discussion on that. So there are some similarities. What I'm talking about, the challenges in operationalizing your machine learning models has some common things to compare with DevOps. For example, the CI/CD practices. We will discuss about CI/CD definitely. The CI/CD practices that we do use in DevOps and source and version control process that we do follow in DevOps are common in MLOps also. That means there's an advantage for DevOps engineers, right? So, okay, that's good. Let's put a pause button and let's try to discuss about the beautiful story here. Okay, I'm not going to talk about a different story. So let me just mention a quick story where you can able to understand what is really MLOps is about. You'll get an idea of the different flavors of tools that we do use in order to deliver your ML models to production. Otherwise, how does this ML pipelines are built? Okay, let's go to year 2020. Okay, let's say we are going to the year 2020. So what we're going to do in this year 2020, let's say this is the year, let's say we do have a data scientist in 2020. He is building an ML model for a theater owners. So I mean, he's building an ML model to predict how much money the theater owners are going to make, or how much money the theater owners are going to make by selling the tickets. Okay, so the data scientist has trained this model, but he didn't implemented anything on MLOps, no automation at all. He has done everything manually, and he has deployed his model to some kind of a deployment environment. Okay, but this data scientist assured this model is going to work fine for the next 3 years, but that didn't happen. The model got failed in next 3 months itself. The model got failed in next 3 months. The client is not happy. So what could be the possible reason? You know what happened in 2020? That's the time the world has been hit by COVID-19. So you know what happened? Once the COVID came to the picture, people started gradually stop going for tutors, right? Not immediately, they stopped gradually. And in some point, people stopped going for tutors. And how come the data scientists couldn't able to recognize this? Because they didn't implemented any kind of a model monitoring tools in order to monitor the model that is in a production. Because your customers are your data, isn't it? Let's say at the end of the day, you can see your customer behavior is changing. So the customer, I mean, your customers who is going for taters, they gradually stopped going for taters. You couldn't able to monitor this behavior. In case if you have implemented any model monitoring tools, you could able to easily monitor that. That means what? If you could able to monitor that, you know that your customer behavior is changing. You could have taken a new data of your customer. You could have retrained your ML model. So your model might have the new behavior of a customer. Your model would have been updated. That's good. That's the first thing. So then comes, let's try to understand the another side of a story, folks. What do you mean by the another side of a story? Your customers are your data. Let's say we do have 3 different versions of data here, because before COVID, everyone is going for TTS. During COVID, we gradually stopped going for TTS. And even after COVID, you can see, I want to mention one more thing. You can see that during COVID, obviously we didn't go for TTS, but we started watching more movies during COVID. How? Because of OTTs. So a lot of OTTs born at that particular time. Even a lot of OTTs been skyrocketed at that particular time. So that's why we started watching more movies. And even after COVID today, there may be a very small number of people who might have stopped going for theaters, because if we wait for next 15 days, we can watch the same exact movie in OTTs, right? That's how it works. Okay, how does this story is really related to the data versioning that I'm talking about? Before COVID, during COVID, and after COVID. That's the 3 different versions of data that you do have. So versioning a data is really important when it comes to your ML project, because your data has versions. So there are different kind of data versioning tools that we can able to use today in a market to version your data. For example, if I want to name a tool, there is a tool called DVC which you can able to use for versioning your data basically. So otherwise, every cloud platforms like AWS or Azure or GCP, they have their own tool that you can able to use it for versioning a data. Then comes source version control. So you do have a data scientist, he writes a lot of Python code, for example, right? A data scientist or maybe data engineer, we do write a lot of Python code. If you have data scientist here, tell me how many times the code that you have written has been changed. You can just mention the number if you know. Otherwise, if you have many times, you can just say many times. Definitely, there is no doubt the code that you might have written might have changed many times. So then how are you going to version your code that you've written? So this is where the source version control tools comes to the picture. You might have heard about something called GitHub, isn't it? So we do use tools like Git or GitHub in order to version your data. You're going to learn about that. So then comes model artifacts and model versioning. As I mentioned, throughout the life cycle of your ML project, you're not going to stick to only one version of an ML model. You're going to you're going to create multiple versions of your ML model. So how are you going to manage to store and version your ML models? Are we going to create a folder? Let's do one thing. Let's create a folder and we'll put the model inside it and we'll zip it and we'll name the folders as version 1, version 2, version 3. Do you think this is a right practice? Definitely not. So this is where something called model registries comes into the picture, the kind of tools that we can able to use in order to version your ML models. If I want to name the very famous open source tool, it's called MLflow, that you can able to use in order to register your ML models. So we're going to discuss about a lot of other tools. Okay, that's perfect. So we do have some idea about MLOps right now, but now let me help you to become a master and specialist in MLOps. Are you interested? If you're interested to become a specialist, give me S in the chat window. That's good. Okay, let's move on. Let's have a further discussion and what it takes to become a master in MLOps. So what do you mean by master in MLOps is all about? Let's say today the world is going to talk about AI, and in some way everyone is going to be part of AI. So you folks want to be a creator of AI, then let me help you to become a specialist in MLOps. So let's get started. Let's first try to understand the MLOps components. Okay, so what do you mean by the MLOps components? the different components that we do have in the process of building your ML pipelines. The first thing, obviously, the use case discovery, there's no doubt about it. An organization first, they should have a proper use case. Then we do have a data engineers where they build data pipelines. Data engineers plays a different ball game because they will be building data pipelines to harvest and bring a data for an organization. So then comes, we build what we call it as machine learning pipelines and automated pipelines for building and training your ML models. So then comes, you do have a production deployment process where we go ahead and deploy your ML models. Then comes production monitoring, not just monitoring your ML models, monitoring the complete infrastructure that you do have for your machine learning project. So let's get started. The first thing, we will be starting from a business understanding. They will be doing a use case identification, the data understanding, and the feasibility study. So obviously, any organization, first of all, they need to have a proper access to the data. That means they should have a proper data infrastructure. They should start harvesting a more data even in the future. So if an organization doesn't have any kind of a data, there's no point of talking machine learning or a data science or an MLOps or even the generative AI or LLMOps or LLMs, whatever it is, right? They should have a proper access to data. Let's say that they do have an access to data and a use case. So this is where a data preparation kicks in. This is where we do have a data engineers. They will be start preparing a data. Then comes in the process of building your ML model. First, we pick a right kind of an algorithm that you want to use. Maybe I want to use ML frameworks like TensorFlow, PyTorch, or maybe any different ML frameworks. Our data scientist picks an algorithm. Then you'll be getting into the process of building and training your ML model. And again, as we discussed, you cannot produce the best quality of ML model in one single shot. You might be, you want to do multiple experimentation to figure out the best quality of an ML model. That's great. You could able to recognize got the best version of an ML model. Then you do the model evaluation, you extract the metrics from it. So then finally, you'll be talking about serving your ML model to production. So now you need to go ahead and deploy this model to production. So now in the process of deploying your ML models to production, as I discussed, maybe you want to deploy it to the Dockers, Kubernetes, to the cloud real-time endpoint, to the batch, or maybe to the IoT devices, maybe to your mobile phones, n number of possibilities, right? So this is where we started doing an automation in the process of deployment, CI/CD implementations, and started operating this models in production. Then keeps on monitoring your ML models in a production and keep on monitoring your complete infrastructure. And once you started monitoring, you keep on understanding your customer behavior changes and you started learning the lessons from it, and you keep on optimizing, you keep on producing the multiple different versions of your ML models. Okay, so saying that, let's move on to the very infinite number of very important slide that we're going to discuss today. So this particular slide will get you a complete idea of what is exactly the MLOps architecture looks like. Folks, you need to make a note of one thing. See, when we talk about MLOps, there is something called maturity level that we mention in an organization. So what is this maturity level? Is nothing but not in not every organizations on a day one, they will be implementing complete automation. Okay, so they will be starting implementing an operation of implementing an operations, I mean automation step by step. We call it as MLOps maturity level. So this maturity level, let's say you might have a level, you might be in a level 0, no automation. So once you go for level 1, level 2, level 3, and where you have a level 4, the level 4 is the highest level of automation that you can able to implement today. So let's try to discuss how does this level 4 architecture looks like. So the ideology for every organization is to move from automated ML workflow to completely incorporated CI/CD pipelines or CI/CD practices. So what do you mean by that? So what do you think in a traditional way of building ML models? What we do, we take a data, we do data preparation, we train an ML model, then we go ahead and deploy it. There's no much automation over there, right? So now let us have a discussion about what does an incorporated CI/CD pipelines actually looks like. Okay, so let's get started again talking about ML project identification. So let's consider that, okay, an organization has a use case to get started. That's perfect. And the first thing is to have a data, and we do understand that data will have a version. This is where we will be integrating the data version control tools, which we will be using for versioning a data. It can be DVC, which is open source, something on SageMaker in AWS, Azure Machine Learning Studio, Vertex AI, any tool that you can able to use it for versioning your data. So then comes data pre-processing job. As I mentioned, the data has a lot of garbages. We started cleaning, preparing it. So this is where we'll be writing a script. Maybe data scientists or data engineers, you will be writing a lot of Python programming, a script, something. Okay, so now we know that the code that is written is going to change multiple times. This is where we will be implementing the code repositories like GitHub, something on AWS, something on Azure that we use in order to version your code. So once also our data scientists will be also writing a code to train his model, and will be also started versioning that particular code. So then comes at the process of model training. See, what is this model training? It's all about we take a data, we start teaching this data to a machine. So this is where something called a feature store comes into the picture. Listen, this is a very interesting topic. What is this feature store? Feature store is a schema repository for your features. That's not a database where we're going to get a data, but that's a schema repository. So consider that, let's say we are talking about a use case where I want to train an ML model to predict an electricity bills. So I do have a features like voltage, current, maybe the bill amounts. I might have another feature called power. Let's say together voltage, current, and bill amount, this can be a version 1 of my feature. With voltage, current, bill amount, and power, this can be a version 2 of my feature. So we do have a feature store which is going to act as a schema repository. I use a schema from it to fetch the right kind of a data, and I use to start training that data to train my ML model. So then comes what? We produce the model artifacts. So model artifacts is a combination of your ML models with a lot of metadata in it. So we know that we are not going to produce only one version of an ML model. We're going to stick to multiple versions of ML models we're going to produce. How are we going to version it? We're going to implement model registries, tools that we're going to use it in order to register your ML models. Perfect. It can be MLflow, it can be SageMaker model registry, Vertex AI model registry, anything it can be. So then comes the final step. We'll be talking about deploying your ML models to production, and we follow the different steps as I mentioned, and then we started integrations of those ML models to production. Then we started operating it, and then comes a feedback loops also comes into the picture. So where we call it as an automated quality gates. So we do have two quality gates. You can also use this quality gate post deployment, before deployment of your ML models, and you can also use this quality gates on the side of a data preparation also. So what is this quality gates? So this quality gates going to hack is going to helpful for you to decide whether you can go ahead and deploy this ML models to production, whether they are right models or not. So here I will be using this quality gates to stick to my decisions. For example, let's say the data scientist is going to stick to something called metrics in order to decide whether it's a right model. Can I go ahead and deploy it to the production? So for example, I'm going to use a metrics called MSE score, for example. So MSE, which stands for mean square error. It's a kind of a metrics that my data scientist is going to rely on. So the kind of a MSE metrics, if it is less than or equal to 7, if this condition satisfies, then I will deploy my ML model to model registry. Otherwise I will not register my model to model registry if this condition didn't satisfy. So you can able to use this quality gates to check the threshold that is set by your business stakeholders to make a decision actually whether you can go ahead and deploy this new version of a model to production or not. You can also use automated quality gates at the side of data preparation also, because your data comes with a lot of garbages. You need to ensure that the data that you have it is clean and it's free from missing values, outliers, all this stuff. You can also use a quality gate over there to ensure that. And again, just imagine this complete infrastructure. So having end-to-end traceability, I'm talking about monitoring not just your ML models. You do have an infrastructure for your data pre-processing, model training, your feature stores, your code repository, your CI/CD pipelines. Monitoring everything is really important. Okay, so this is what exactly an end-to-end MLOps automated retraining pipelines looks like. So what I'm the level 4 architecture that I'm talking about, it's called automated retraining pipelines. That means you're not just using a Jupyter notebooks to manually run a code and train a model. I'm not talking about that. So everything runs automatically. Your data preparation happens automatically, model training, model evaluation, model registration, and even model deployment can be done automatically. So this is what exactly what we're talking about, end-to-end, completely automated retraining pipelines, basically. So that's perfect. Let's move on to the another interesting part. Okay, so where I'm going to be fitting. So you might say that I'm a cloud engineer, I'm a data scientist, I'm a data analyst, I'm a ML engineer, I'm a DevOps engineer. So where I will be fitting inside this particular journey, let's have a quick discussion on that. So definitely there's no doubt about it, developing a successful machine learning project involves varieties of experience and requires extreme collaboration among the team, right? So various different organizations, they have a different roles in the in your project. For example, there are data analysts, data engineers, data scientists. There are different kind of roles. Obviously, it's completely depends on your organization. Obviously, let's say not every organization might have all the roles that I'm going to define here. So definitely, first of all, an organization should have an enough budget for them to hire manpower. So that means the skilled peoples who can be part of their particular project. Okay, so first thing, let's try to understand according to the industry standard, what are the different stakeholders that we do have in this particular journey, right? So let's say we will be getting started with our data analyst. Obviously, we know that data analyst, they will be closely working with product managers and the business team. So they will be driving an insights from the users data, obviously. So I mean, to generate a features, to decide which features really works for the business. So obviously we know that data analysts, they will be using a tools like SQLs, Excel sheet, a range of other data visualization tools like Tableau, Power BI to generate users data insights. And again, data analyst also plays a very important role in monitoring your complete infrastructure, monitoring your ML models, building dashboards, and understanding the data from it. And let's also talk about data engineers. Data engineers obviously make sure that infrastructure to collect, transform, pre-process, and store the data. So they do work with a lot of tools like Spark, Hadoop, ETL tools. They will be working with model registries. They will be working with let's say feature stores and all. So I would request participants to turn off your camera. Thank you so much for understanding. Yeah, so okay, so then comes, let's talk about data scientist. Obviously we know that data scientist is someone who is going to build an ML model which is going to be part of a final end product, right? So then comes research or applied scientist. So you might not able to see this particular role everywhere, but organizations are working on a cutting edge technologies. Maybe we talk about maybe Microsoft, Amazon, it can be Meta. So those kind of an organizations where you can able to see this particular role. So basically applied scientists, a research scientist, they will be developing a new algorithms for various product related areas actually. So then we talk about ML engineers. So ML engineers are basically, we call it as deployment peoples. Yes, so their work will be overlapped with data engineers, but they largely focus on ML models and related infrastructures. So the goal for ML engineers to take a model that is developed by our data scientist and go ahead and deploy that to the production actually. So in MLOps, I mean in AI industry, we specifically don't call them as DevOps engineers. Basically, we call them as a ML engineers. That's where DevOps engineers also fits in actually. So then comes developers. I would say it is a last piece of a puzzle. Arguably it's a most important one. You know that developers are someone who is going to create or build the final client application. He is going to integrate everything, and where the final end users, they're going to use your ML model through the app that is developed by our developers at the end of the day, right? Okay, so now let's talk about, I just want to give a flavors of different types of tools that you can able to find today in a market in terms of MLOps actually. Okay, so let's dive into that. Let's say we do understand the workflow, right? So in the process of building end-to-end MLOps pipelines, you do have a requirements of various different tools. The tools that is needed for data versioning, code versioning, experiment tracking, model registries, model monitoring tools, etc. So we do understand in the process of what's the traditional process of building ML models. We do start from data collection and labeling, data exploration, then build your ML model and evaluate. Then you go ahead and deploy. Pretty much simple. Take a data, clean it, train it, then deploy it. That's a traditional process. But what does this MLOps stack maturity look like? So for example, if you want to build this end-to-end ML workflows, what are the various different kind of tools that is available in the market? So obviously I didn't display all the tools just to get some clarity. What are the flavors of tools that we do have here? So let's say we do start from a development IDEs. Obviously we do use these IDEs to develop a code, to write a code, like Jupyter notebooks. It can be VS Code, right? PyCharm, anything. So then comes code version tools, the tools that you do use for versioning your code, like GitHub, something on AWS, Azure, and GCP. So then comes data labeling tools. Here, obviously, when we talk about machine learning use cases, you might be having a data. For that data, you might be having a label for it. So we do have a lot of tools that is outside the market that you can able to use it for versioning. I mean, to label your data. So then comes data exploration and visualization. So data exploration and visualization plays very important role to understand your data. For that, we do use various tools like Pandas, Matplotlib, Seaborn, Exam, etc. So then comes for feature engineering purpose, we do use tools like sklearn. Or there are commercial tools outside in the market. Commercial tools are like, okay, subscription platforms. You pay a subscription, then you use that particular service, like feature store, feature tool, for example. Then there is a very famous tool that is outside. It's called Feast, which you can also use it for feature engineering. And for model training purpose, this is where we pick an ML algorithm. It can be sklearn, it can be TensorFlow, it can be PyTorch, it can be XGBoost even. So you pick this algorithm, one that suits your use case, obviously, right? So then comes for building a quick POC. Let's say you want to quickly build a POC, you want to experiment with that. So this is where, so we use tools like Jupyter Notebook, Streamlit, blah, 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 any different tool that you can able to simply deploy and experiment with ML model that you have built. Then for model debugging and visualization, there are a range of different tools starting from Neptune.ai, TensorBoard, for example. Weights and biases is a commercial tool. For model tuning, I mean, for hyperparameter tuning, there are different tools. There are SDKs, obviously, like Keras Tuner and Tune, for example. For experiment tracking, this is where, let's say, as a data scientist, you don't get best version of a model in one single try. You do various different experiments, and you need to have a right kind of a tool where you can able to go ahead and compare these experiments. For that, we use tools like MLflow, Neptune.ai, weights and biases, for example. For model packing, for deployment purpose, we pack your ML model in various different types. For that, so maybe you want to use TensorFlow technique, ONNX, SageMaker, Bento ML. There are various different methods that we do still follow. For serving, so obviously you can able to serve your ML model in various different locations, maybe Docker, Kubernetes, SageMaker in AWS, Azure, Vertex AI, a lot of examples, but I have just mentioned few here. So then comes workflow orchestration. So what do you mean by workflow orchestration? There is a process, there are steps. How do you build the steps? That is what exactly the workflow orchestration. The first step, data preparation, then model training, model evaluation, model deployment. You have this workflow. So for this workflow orchestration, we use tools like Apache, Airflow, Kubeflow is one of the very famous ones, ZenML open source, Olahai is again a commercial tool that you can able to use. For data versioning, you can see there are a lot of tools. I did mention about DVC, but still you can use tools like Neptune.ai, Git large files. Git has its own tool and such other tools that is outside. So then comes a model registry that I mentioned. So as I mentioned, a tool that you can able to use it for versioning your ML models. MLflow, I would say one of the must-have tool on every people who are into AI industry on your resumes. So there's a lot of other tools like ClearML is there, weights and biases. You can also use commercial tools like weights and biases. So for model monitoring, every cloud, let's say it can be AWS, Azure, GCP, they offer their own SDKs for model monitoring. And you can also look for open source tools like Evidently AI, it can be Seldon and other tools. And we discussed about feature stores. Here we have various different feature stores like Tekton, SageMaker, Feast is an open source one, which is a free to use actually. So these are the different flavors of tools that you can able to use it in a market today, and not just sticking to that particular tool. There are really various different tools still that is available in the market. Okay, so now let us ask this question. So how do you become a specialist? To become a specialist, so these are the few things that we need to consider. So how do you pick a tool? Consider that, especially when you're going to have a more than let's say 7+ years of experience, you can also work in a senior positions in MLOps, like MLOps architect, MLOps specialist, MLOps lead. Okay, we're going to talk about more about it. Make your time, ask a lot of questions, share your experience. I'm going to discuss a lot. So let's say if you want to become a specialist, let's say, how do you pick a tool, for example? So whether you're going to pick a open source tools or closed source tools. So obviously there are a lot of open source MLOps tools that is outside in the market. So obviously we know that open source tools are always free. You can able to easily integrate with your application, with your MLOps tools. But the difficult part is if you have a team which less knowledge with that open source tools, or you might have an open source tools with a less support, with a less community support, then it could be the problem. So then comes whether you're going to pick a platform versus specific tool. So what do you mean by platform versus specific tool? Are you going to pick a managed, I mean, a subscription platforms? Let's say you can also go for the subscription platform that is outside in the market. Are you going to go for the let's say the cloud-based infrastructures? Like you want to go for picking your where you want your MLOps infrastructure to be deployed, whether it should be deployed on AWS or Azure or GCP, or you want to go for the commercial one. So it's completely up to the industries. Then comes model and product environment monitoring. The kind of a tool that you're going to pick for your organization, you need to ensure that it has a tools for you to monitor your model and your production environment. So because monitoring an ML model is really important, as we discussed, you need to ensure that your production bugs are documented and addressed as soon as possible, just ensuring that security and compliance concerns are addressed in time. So then comes model templating and cataloging. The very important thing that everyone who is getting into AI industry or someone who is going to be part of building automations, you need to understand the importance of templating and cataloging. So consider that maybe it's a day one, you are working for a client one. Let's say you're not going to work for one single project throughout the life cycle of your throughout your life. So you're going to work for many different clients, you're going to work with many different projects, but you don't want to reinvent the wheel again and again. So because you might have built a successful pipelines for your client one, and your client one is really happy with that, and for a client number two, you don't want to reinvent the wheel again. This is where the concept of templating and cataloging comes in the picture. So your ML pipelines can be created as a template. You can able to reuse that template with a minimal changes. You can replicate the success for many different clients that are going to come tomorrow. So then comes model training, tuning, and drift management. So here you need to have an automation. That means you don't want to run your code manually here. You want your model data preparation need to happen automatically, model training, model evaluation, and model deployment. So just ensure that the kind of a tool that you pick, it has such kind of an automation. Then comes pipeline management. So pipeline management is nothing but, let's say in this particular pipeline, you do have various different stakeholders. You do have a data engineers, data scientists, ML engineers. If something goes wrong in this particular pipeline, you need to ensure that you can able to send the triggers, alerts, intimations to that particular stakeholders, where they can able to check what's went wrong in their pipeline, and they can able to correct and make sure that they can start running as smoothly. So then comes collaboration and communication capabilities, because that's what really important, because MLOps is all about collaboration and communication. You need to ensure that you do document the commands, the questions, and make sure that you do integrate the communication tools. For example, maybe I want to integrate tools like Slack, project management tools like Jira, which can able to make your organization's life easier. So putting everything together, to picking the right tool for your organization is really important. So talking about the tool, let's get started with what cloud offers in terms of MLOps on top of a cloud. Let's say here we are going to talk about the world leading cloud platforms, obviously AWS, Azure, and GCP. Obviously we know that. So let's say if we're going to ask a question, why cloud? Because when we talk about let's say the IT industry, and when we talk about these three cloud platforms like AWS, Azure, and GCP, so this is where the major workloads of your machine learning projects runs today, right? So let's say we're going to talk about these three cloud platforms, AWS, Azure, and GCP, because they occupy the majority share in a cloud industry. Yes, when it comes to our MLOps program, so we do cover DevOps and MLOps tools on top of not just a one cloud platform. This program is, let's say, inclusive of AWS, Azure, and GCP. We do cover all these three cloud platforms. But that might not be enough, because today the world relies not just on one single cloud, the world relies on multi-cloud. There are organizations who use multi-cloud. I have seen there are organizations who run their DevOps pipelines on top of Azure, but they deploy their ML models on AWS. That's possible still. And there are organizations still, if they're using cloud platforms like AWS or Azure or GCP, but they still use open source tools like Docker, Kubernetes, MLflow, Kubeflow, XAML, and other such kind of open source tools. Yes, this program is also inclusive of open source tools. Let's try to give you the flavors of tools that we will be covering in this particular program. So first, So we'll be getting started with a Git based tools. We'll be talking about Git from scratch, understanding how to use Git, and started working with various different GitHub repositories, the remote repositories like GitHub. It can be AWS has something called AWS Code Commit. Azure has Azure repos. GCP has Google Cloud repositories that we'll be working with. So then comes understanding CI/CD. So I did mention about this word CI/CD a couple of times. What is this? CI stands for continuous integration. CD stands for continuous deployment. Let's try to understand it in a pretty much a simple way. So CI/CD, it's all about, so let's say we do use this CI/CD as a practice to deliver the new version of a software to the production. Basically, it's an automation practice that we use to deliver a new version of a software to the production. It's a practice that we do use in a DevOps industries, but now we have started also adopting the CI/CD practices in machine learning industry. I mean, in AI industry. So to understand this particular process, here is a simple workflow. Let's say there is a developer. Maybe he's building a web app, an Android application, anything. He has a code and he has a code repository where he is going to put this code on. So let's say, for example, we are talking about, it can be GitHub, for example. He has this code version in a GitHub, and here comes our developer. He makes some changes to the code and he pushed this code to a code repository that he has, right? And what happens? This CI/CD, continuous integration and continuous deployment, is an automation practice. It's an automation that we build. So once the code has been pushed to your code repository, there is a build trigger happens automatically. It keeps on monitoring if there is any changes in your code in a repository. It tries to recognize it and it triggers your build process. See what happens in a build process. Let's say we talk about traditional software industry. Let's say you're building a Java application, right? So you're building a traditional Java application, then your final end product, I mean, the deployment package, it can be a .jar file, right? So you'll be having a jar file, which is an executable file. Let's say it can be, when it comes to, let's say you're building a Microsoft application, then it can be MSI application, the Microsoft installer application, right? So when it talk about ML models, maybe I want to Dockerize my ML model. I want to produce my Dockerized Docker image, right? So let's consider that once the build process kicks in, once the build is done, then we notify that your build is successful. So then once the your software has been built, we will be running a various different tests to ensure that your software is working properly. And here we notify, once your testing is done, we notify that all the test process is done. So then we'll be finally delivering your application to the production. Basically, to understand this process quickly, let me just explain this particular architecture. Okay, here we go. So here is our production software. Let's say in a production software, let's say we are talking about an e-commerce website like Amazon or something like that. There is a pay now button, which is in a green color button. So each and every time the customers want to buy something, they hit on this green color button to buy the product. But the customers didn't like this green color button. There's a lot of feedbacks. Okay, the green is not attractive. You know that red is more attractive. Here comes our developer. He is making some changes to the button in his local code. He's changing the button from green to red, and he will be pushing this particular code to a remote repository that is nothing but GitHub. He has two different branches, one for dev environment, one for production environment. He'll be pushing a code to a dev environment, and automatically, once the code has been pushed, here we are talking about code pipelines on top of AWS, it automatically recognizes that the developer has made some changes. And again, it will start building this particular software and it will produce an artifacts. And then we take that artifacts, then we go ahead and deploy it on a web server. Initially, we'll be deploying your app to your dev server, not to the production, because as mentioned, the dev server is only accessible for your internal team. You do come and do further testing. You check whether the button has been turned to red, whether it is clickable, it is the functionality is working. If you are satisfied with the results, then you go ahead and approve and deploy the same button to the production. So now finally your production is also served with your red color button. So that's how it works. Again, we do have the same kind of a workflow when we talk about our MLOps pipelines also. So again, the process is same. Here we do have a code repository. Here you might have a data scientist, data engineers. Someone is making some changes to the code. He will pushing the changes to your repository, and we have our MLOps pipelines, and automatically get triggered. The first step in a workflow, it will start doing feature engineering. That is nothing but data pre-processing. Then comes model training. Once your model training is done, then comes your model evaluation steps kicks in automatically. Then comes the final condition step. So this is where the automated quality gate that I'm discussing comes into the picture. So this is where I make a decision. So let's say I might be sticking on to my metrics if my MSE score is less than or equal to 7. If this condition satisfies, I go ahead and register my first version of a model to model registry. If this condition didn't satisfy, I don't register my model to model registry at all. What happens next? So now I have my first version of an ML model, then comes our build process kicks in. So this is where, let's say I'm going to dockerize my ML model. Once my model is dockerized, then I will go ahead and deploy to my model hosting platform. Again, I do have different environments. First, I deploy my model to dev environment. So here comes my data scientist, senior data scientist, go ahead and do further testing. If they are satisfied with the results, then I will be deploying the same version of your ML model to production. Now only your customers can start using your model in a production actually. So the same kind of a workflow also works for your LLMOps pipelines. And today we are talking about LLMs. So which we are talking about large language models, what we're talking about GPT, GPT-3, or maybe Plum, or maybe a llama from Meta. So there are different kind of LLMs that we can able to mention today outside in the market. So there is a similar kind of a workflow that follows when it comes to LLMs also, what we call it as LLMOps, large language model operations. So large language models is just an extension of MLOps, I would say. LLMOps is not a different technology altogether. It's just an extension of MLOps. We do have a same kind of a workflow here. We do have data preparation and versioning, and we do have a pipeline designing, what we call it as supervised tuning. And again, so we do have a chance to tune your LLMs. So building your own LLM from scratch is a different ballgame, because unless you don't have funded like an OpenAI or Microsoft who has funded OpenAI, you cannot build your own LLM from scratch. So today we are talking about use of foundation models. You can use foundation models, and you can pre-train your foundation models with your own data, and you can able to produce your own artifacts. And once you have your own artifacts, you can have a pipeline execution process where you can go ahead and deploy your LLMs to the production. So one few changes that you might have in your LLMs, you'll be having a prompting and prediction, and you'll be having a responsible AI. So you know that responsible AI plays a very important role just to ensure that the results that is produced by your LLMs are responsible. So consider that, you know what happens to Gemini from Google, right? You know, Gemini has become more racist. I mean, I don't want to call this particular name. I mean, so they have to be still monetized, and they should be more responsible in producing the results. You know that there's a controversial news. You know that when people ask about Modi, right? What I mean, you can just Google it. You'll know that. So there's a two different answers when people ask about Ukraine president, or maybe versus the Prime Minister of India. There's two different results been produced. So responsible AI plays very important role just to make sure it filters out and just make sure that it doesn't produce any harmful informations, right? So now let's talk about the kind of CI/CD tools that we will be learning. There are various different CI/CD tools that we'll be learning in this particular program, starting from AWS DevOps tools. So talking about AWS code pipelines, which is integrated with code commit, code build, and code deploy. And then we will be talking about GCP DevOps tools, starting from cloud build, talking about cloud source repositories, artifact registries, or maybe cloud run, or maybe cloud deploy. So then comes then comes the GCP is done. So now comes Azure DevOps tools. We'll be covering the complete Azure suite, starting from Azure pipelines, Azure repos. We'll be talking about Azure boards and Azure artifacts. And again, we'll be talking about open source tools like Dockers and Kubernetes. We'll be getting started from scratch, how to play with Dockers, Kubernetes, and we'll be also exploring the cloud-based Kubernetes infrastructure. It can be EKS on AWS, AKS on top of Azure, or maybe GKS on top of GCP. And again, it is also really important to understand the model management tools like MLflow, which is a model registry and experiment tracking tool. DVC, as I mentioned, for data versioning. Git large files, again, an alternative tool for versioning your data. And there are various different feature stores that is available in the market. It can be a SageMaker feature store that we're going to discuss. Vertex AI in GCP, they have their own feature store. It can be Databricks. It can be Tecton, like a commercial tool. A Feast can be open source tool. or it can be other commercial tools like Upswork, or building your own customized feature stores by using DynamoDB and S3. So then comes cloud ML services, because today the world relies on both cloud and open source tools also. Maybe consider that when you're working in especially a Middle East based organizations, they don't use much of a cloud. They want everything on premises. So then here comes a Kubeflow as a framework that sits on top of let's say Kubernetes infrastructure, which you can able to use to build end-to-end open source ML pipelines. Let's say if you want to use cloud platforms, we'll be talking about Amazon SageMaker, Vertex AI in GCP, our Azure Machine Learning Studio for building end-to-end MLOps pipelines actually. Saying that, then comes model monitoring. We know that post-deployment challenges like monitoring your ML models. When we talk about these cloud platforms, it can be AWS or Azure or GCP, they offer their own SDKs to monitor your ML model. Or we can also discuss about the very famous open source tools called Evidently AI for monitoring your ML models in production. Then comes the most interesting part. We'll be also covering some of our commercial tools on top of industries, like talking about Isgazio, Weights and Biases, Olahai, Domino Data Labs, H2O.ai, and M2N.ai. So usually an organizations won't directly go ahead and start using a commercial tools. Then advantage of using these commercial tools can really help you to quick to the market, right? So then comes post deployment challenges. So here, when it comes to post deployment challenges, once you deploy your models to production, you might be having a challenges related to software engineering, you might be having a challenges related to ML engineering. Then comes, you might have a challenges when you're deploying your ML models to edge devices. So we'll be also talking about that. Saying that, here comes the first promise. Let's go ahead without wasting much of a time. Let's go ahead and have a quick demo that we have arranged on top of AWS. So now we have built an end-to-end ML pipelines on top of Amazon SageMaker. I'm going to give a quick let's go ahead and get a quick look on this particular pipelines, and I'm going to show you the same replication what I've done. I mean, I'm going to show you how I'm going to deploy my ML models to two different environments. So I'm going to show you, like, first step, we will be going ahead and we will be deploying a model to a dev environment. Then once the dev environment is done, the next step we'll be deploying our ML model to the production environment. We have this environment set up ready on top of AWS. Without wasting much of a time, let's go ahead and take a look. Here comes a SageMaker Studio Lab. You can able to see that in my screen. You currently are accessing my Amazon SageMaker Studio, and here you can able to see that here is a project, folks, that I have created where I have built end-to-end MLOps pipelines, and you can see that I do have a repositories. This is a repository where do I have my code actually. This is where my code is actually sitting. So this is where the code that is written by my data scientist or data engineer sits in. And this is where my pipelines, so this is where I have my end-to-end ML pipelines actually running. So this is where I have my experiments. This is where I might do multiple iterations to produce the best version of your ML models. So this is called model registry. This is what exactly I'm talking about, the place I use to version my ML models. And this is my endpoint. This is where your deployed endpoints, I mean deployed models, you can able to access it from. Okay, so here you can able to notice that I do have two different repositories. The first repository for model building, the second repository for model deployment. I do have a code in a two different repositories. Okay, then comes the pipeline section. Let's go to the pipeline section right now. And here you can see I do have one pipeline which I created 1 hour ago. Let me just go ahead and access this particular pipeline here. And you can see that, you can see the status here, it says succeeded. That means my pipeline has executed only once, it has succeeded. But this is a table. Each and every time when your pipeline executes, it produces the new ML model. Let's consider that this is the first version of an ML model which has been produced. Let's say you might have multiple entries in this particular table. Let's say you have another entry, it might produce version 2, version 3. So once your pipeline executes again and again, it's going to produce the multiple versions of your ML models. So now I do have one version of my ML model. That means I have my pipeline executed once. Let me just go ahead and start checking this out. Okay, here we go. Here you can able to see the graph, what we call it as. So this is what exactly I'm talking about, a workflow, the steps that I define in the process of building, training, and deployment of your ML model. So what do you think the first process, the first step in a workflow is basically the data preparation, right? So here comes the first step in a workflow, what I call it as prepare abalone data. What is this? Abalone data is nothing but abalone is a seafood data. So if you don't know what is abalone is, it's a kind of a sea snail. If you're a non-vegetarian, probably you might have know that. So this is the seafood data. So I'm just training my ML end-to-end ML model on top of SageMaker. Basically, I'm trying to predict an age of this particular abalone. Okay, the first step in a workflow, I'm just mentioning that I'm preparing my data. Then comes, once you can see that the green indication says that your data has been prepared. So the next step in a workflow, this is where I'm training my ML model. So my data preparation is done. I'm grabbing my data from data preparation, then I'm training my ML model. Then comes the next step in a workflow. Once the model has been trained, this is where I'm evaluating my ML model. I'm just testing my ML model whether it is up to the mark. If I'm really satisfied with that, then I will go ahead and do my quality check. This is where I'm checking my abalone evaluation. This is where I have my quality gate. I'm just checking whether my MSE score, if it is less than or equal to 7, if this condition satisfies, if it is true, you can see that output is true. That means I will be going ahead and I will be I will be registering my ML model to model registry. So that's what exactly it says. So now if I go ahead and if I click on each and every block, you can able to get the different results out of it. Let's say if I go to my pre-process abalone data, if I go to my output, you can see what we do in a data preparation. We split my data to training, testing, and validation. So basically I'm splitting my data, I'm storing it in some kind of a storage platform. When it comes to AWS, I will be storing it in S3 bucket, which is a kind of a storage platform similar to Google Drive, I would say. Then comes training your abalone model. As part of model training, here you can able to see that I'm generating a metrics. The kind of a metrics I'm generating is basically the MSE score. The RMSE score I'm generating on both my training and validation data. And this is what exactly my ML model looks like. You can able to see this model.tar.gz file. This is my ML model, which I have produced, which I'm going to use it further to go ahead and deploy it to the production. Great. Then comes model evaluation step. This is where I'm evaluating my ML model. So this is where I check and generate metrics, and all these metrics is exported back to an S3 bucket in AWS. So this is stored in this particular directory here. Then comes the final quality gate as I'm talking about, which is going to helpful for me to decide whether I can go ahead and deploy this ML model to production. So you can see that output is true. That means I'm going to deploy my ML model to production. So, I'm going to register to my model registry, the first step. Let me just go ahead and click my registration of my ML model. You can see this is my MSE score. That means 5.02, whether it is less than or equal to 7. Yes, this condition is satisfied. 5.02 is actually less than or equal to 7. That's why my model got registered to my model registry. So now my model has been registered. That's great. So now let me just go to my model groups. So this is where you can see my model has been registered. Let me just get into my model registry. Tell me what you can able to find in this particular screen. You can see that it says I have first version of your ML model, and you can see that it says it is pending manual approval. That means it is not yet deployed, folks. It is waiting for my approval to go ahead and deploy it to the production, or maybe to the different stages I do have. As part of our architecture that we are discussing, the first step, what we're going to do, we're going to deploy this ML model to our dev environment. So we are not going to deploy to the production directly. The first step, we're going to deploy to the dev environment that we do have. So let's see how we're going to deploy this model to dev environment. To deploy this, all I'm going to do, I'm going to click on this version 1. Once I click on version 1, you can see it says it's pending. So now I'm going to change the action. I will be going to this actions drop down. Now it is pending. I'm going to click approved, and simply I'm going to save and update. So this is going to deploy my model to my dev environment. Otherwise, I would say we can say it's a staging environment, right? So now you can see the status, it says approved. it's going to take a few minutes to go ahead and deploy this model to dev environment. So we can also monitor the deployment process under endpoints. Endpoints is a destination where you can find your models that is deployed to a dev environment or to production environment. Let's give it a minute. Let's go ahead and let it deploy. Then we will come back and let's have a further discussion. Okay, saying that, let's move on to the very third thing, the very important thing that I promised I will be discussing, the MLOps job industries. Okay, the first question is, who will be part of MLOps? Who should learn MLOps? That might be the first question that you might have, right? Okay, let's get started. So you might be a data scientist. Definitely you need to have an MLOps skill sets, right? Or you might be a data engineer or a data analyst, a research or applied scientist, ML engineer, or you might be a DevOps engineer, someone who is trying to transform into AI industry, or maybe an aspiring MLOps professional or enthusiast, or machine learning professional, someone who want to understand how to deploy your models to production, or someone who is trying to learn Docker, Kubernetes, AWS, Azure, GCP, open source tools like DVC, Feast, MLflow, Kubernetes, Dockers. You need to learn this particular program. And any individuals, someone who is interested in the data or getting into AI industry, MLOps is for you. Because if you are really good at Python programming, okay, if you are really good at ML algorithms, statistics and probability, we call yourself as a data scientist. So if you're a data scientist, let's say if you go back to last 10 years ago, the situation is different. You've been really high. Let's say if you are really good at data science, that means I'm talking about ML algorithms, mathematics, statistics and probability, you are hired. But the situation being completely different considering the current state of machine learning. So today the industry is looking forward to get into their models to production. So they no more, they don't want to do a prototyping work, right? Okay, here comes the crazy numbers. This is the updated numbers. You can just go ahead and cross verify these numbers in a sixfigure.com, and obviously the US market is really higher, so the MLOps salaries. Let's say if you have an MLOps skill sets on top of your resume, so when it comes to US market, it's almost 94K, $94,000 a year. But let's try to understand the Indian market. So 26.6 lakhs. Someone who has 2 to 3 years of experience, this is an average salary in India. It's 26.6 lakhs per annum. And just imagine you might be having more than 4 years or 7 years of experience. You can look for the senior positions in MLOps, like MLOps lead engineer, MLOps architect, and specialist kind of roles. Obviously, there's no doubt about it. And your pay scale will be keep on going up. Let's say 33% of people, they are in a slab of 10 to 20 lakhs, 42% is around 20 to 30, 25% is around 30 to 40 lakhs, and above when it comes to depending on your senior positions actually. Obviously, talking about an AI industry, the ML job vacancy trend is still picking up because let's say talking about any different organization. So whether an organization, you might be in the IT industry or you might be in a non-IT, doesn't matter. AI is going to be part of each and every industry in some fashion, in some way. So consider that there is a real workforce needed here because today, if we talk about any data scientists, ML engineers, they are really skilled at building ML models. But are they really good at delivering their models to production? Are they capable of building ML pipelines? It's the biggest question mark today. And not everything could be done by a data scientist. There is data engineers, there are data scientists, there's an ML engineers, there are MLOps professionals. So DevOps engineers can become MLOps engineers, software engineers can become MLOps engineers today. So a lot of different possibilities. And again, one thing that I want you folks to listen to this. Let's say the innovation is happening pretty much faster, especially in the AI industry. I would say that it is too much fast. I would like to give one example here. So you can see that what happened between 2009 and 2019. So around 2009, you can see that every news reporters, every movie making directors, they might be carrying their huge cameras on a choppers to make a video shot or maybe an ad or something like that. So this industry has been completely replaced just by this particular drones in just 10 years. It took 10 years for them. But I'm not going to talk about 10 years. Let's say I'm going to talk about just a 1.5 years ago, right? So let's say still, and 1.5 years ago, still we are talking about MLOps at that particular time, but still every organization, according to the current state of machine learning that we discussed, still organizations are doing prototyping. They're not reaching the production, right? So perfect. So now industry started productionizing their ML models. They started implementing MLOps pipelines. But last 1.5 years ago, we are not talking much about Gen AI. I'm not. We didn't much talk about generative AI. So ChatGPT got released in year 2022, end of 2022. Before that, we are not talking much about LLMs. So today we are talking about LLMs, right? So the technology that we had last 1 year ago, it been got changed today, right? If you are a person, someone is trying to upskill yourself, maybe are getting into AI industry, as someone who is trying to upskill yourself, getting into MLOps. If you're going to take one more month, I mean, maybe one more year or maybe next 6 months, there's a new technology there. So AI innovation is happening in drastic high speed comparing to any other industry. The reality is what you're seeing today in a market, the different AI tools basically. Okay, so here we do have an exciting announcement. So still, here comes the alert. Still, we do have a 30 minutes for this particular program to get over. There are three things. The first thing, we are in a demo, and the second thing, you can able to download the free ebooks only if you stay till end of this particular program. The third things, we'll discuss more about the world, how does the world looks like for the next 10 years. How can I help you to become a master in MLOps? The next thing that we're going to discuss about our MLOps specialization program. So stay connected. So now let's quickly go ahead and let's take a look on our SageMaker console. Here you can able to take a look. Yeah, perfect. So now you can able to see that my model has been successfully deployed to my dev environment. You can able to see this here, MLOps, I mean, demo-March 24 staging. That means my model has been deployed to staging. It is an in service. So now let me just quickly show you how can I, how am I going to invoke this ML model in production. So grab as many as the questions that you're going to have. We will have a detailed conversation. I'm going to spend a lot of time with you. Let's have a conversation. Okay. Okay, now here we go. Here is a quick script that I've written in order to invoke this ML model that I've deployed to a staging environment. Still, I haven't deployed my model to production. I'm going to show you how am I going to deploy to the production only if you stay till end of this particular program. Okay, here is a simple script that I'm going to use to invoke a model that I have deployed to a staging environment, folks. Okay, all I'm going to hit save. I'm going to hit run. And here you can able to see the predictions that is made by my ML model. You can see that this is the model prediction that is made by my staging model, which is 8.6, which let's say I'm a senior data scientist, for example. Let's say I'm going to check, okay, I'm really satisfied with the results. It is really making a good progress. Now I will take another decision to register or deploy my ML model to, let's say, the production environment. The next stage in a workflow, I'm done with deploying a model to staging environment, and the next step I will go ahead and deploy my model to production. So I'm not going to show you how to deploy a model to production yet. Before that, let's talk about our program, then we will get started. Okay, how do you master MLOps? Okay, here comes our MLOps specialization program. Yes, so we are getting started with our next batch, the brand new next batch for this particular year. I mean, we had our previous batch just got over last weekend. We started our previous batch in January. Now we are getting started with our next batch starting from April 13th. So MLOps specialization program, which is a 10 weekends program. Otherwise, we are talking about around 2.5 months program it is. We are starting from April 13th. So how this program is going to look like, it's going to be interesting. Take a look. So this program is going to be on every weekends. Yes, this is how the structure of a program looks like. Every Saturday, Sunday, that means starting from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. IST, we'll be having a live sessions. What do you mean by live sessions? It's not a webinar or a seminar. You just come and listen and go. It's not how it's going to work. There are more than 10 plus real-time projects that we'll be building. Each and every hands-on, the project that I will be doing on my screen, parallelly you'll be replicating on your screen. That's how it's going to work. Do you remember that I mentioned about the MLOps maturity level? So we will be building the level 4 architecture projects, level 3, level 2, level 1 projects in this particular program actually. So each and every weekend, every Saturday, Sunday, 7 to 11, we'll be having live sessions. Followed by that, every Monday, you will be receiving an access to the recordings of a live session that you attended. And here comes the most interesting part. On every weekdays, we will be having a debugging sessions. What do you mean by debugging sessions? It can be on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. So this is optional to attend. So let's say during a live sessions, you have some bugs, you have some errors, you couldn't able to resolve it over there. You can able to join a debugging sessions, which is going to happen from every 7 p.m. on weekdays. You can, this debugging session is going to be 101. So you can able to join. I will be a trainer for this particular program. Obviously, it's going to be a lot of fun. I'll be helping you to fix the problem that you do have. As I mentioned, let's say 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. Let's say if you're joining from EST time zone, it will be 9:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. Or let's say you're going to join from CET time zone, it will be 2:30 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. Let's have more discussion. So when it comes to MLOps specialization program, it's a program where you can become a specialist. We say it's a 360-degree view of MLOps because we do cover multi-cloud. We do cover AWS, Azure, GCP, and open source tools. So literally you can able to work for any different organization after you upskilling in MLOps specialization program, whether they are looking for AWS or Azure or GCP or combination of open source tools, you do have a skill set. So saying that it's a 80 hours program, so then 50 plus live hands-on projects, 10 plus real-time industry projects. I'm talking about the end-to-end, the level 4 architecture projects, and 101 debugging sessions with you. Okay, saying that, so a lot of people would ask, okay, what would be the pricing structure of this particular program? Let's have discuss about the pricing structure, and let's also have a discussion about what is the awesome curriculum that we do have. We do have a new update for this particular batch. We do also got LLMOps in this particular batch. Obviously, next previous batch we didn't have it. We do have a new update. There are 13 modules totally in this particular program. If you want to see what is the curriculum looks like, stay connected because still we do have 20 minutes time. Okay, let's have a quick look on what does the pricing structure looks like. So when it comes to MLOps specialization program, we don't have one single pricing structure. We do have 3 different pricing structures. It's going to be really interesting. So the first pricing for our MLOps specialization program, we do call it as Advanced Plus plan. It starts from 49,999, and we do have an advanced plan. It starts from 43,999. So then we do have something called a basic plan. A starting fee for this particular program is just starting from 40,999. Okay, so Sharath, what is this? We do have a 3 different pricing structure. So what's the difference, right? Let's have a quick discussion on this. Okay, there are 2 phases in this particular program. So phase number 1, let's talk about phase number 1 and phase number 2. Phase number 1 is all about upskill, and then comes post upskill. So what is this upskill? So when it comes to the basic plan, is just designed for upskilling yourself. So consider that you're looking for these 3 things. Let's say you want to attend live sessions, you want to get an access to the recordings, and you want to debugging sessions. If you're only looking for upskilling, you can go for a basic plan, which is just costing 40,999. Or let's say if you want some premium support from us, you can also go for advanced or advanced plus plan. Everything in a basic is also included in advanced and advanced plus also. You can, I mean, there's no exception in what you learn, whether you take basic or advanced plus. Each and every candidate will learn the same exact thing from this particular program. But let's talk about some additional premium features that you're going to receive from it. So one is 6 months of technical job support with resume preparation and bonus reattendance opportunity. So what is this resume preparation and 6 months of technical job support that I'm talking about? Let's say most of the candidates, 99% of folks who take our programs are working professionals. Obviously, everyone want to upskill, they want to go for the better job outside. So maybe let's say you're looking for various different positions. Maybe you want to apply for MLOps engineer, ML engineer. Maybe you want to apply for a senior positions. So here we help you prepare your resumes accordingly, help you bias your resumes accordingly. Not just helping your resumes when it comes to 6 months of technical job support, we do also help you optimize. It can be a LinkedIn profile, maybe Naukri profile, or what are the job portals that you do have in your country, just to make sure that you get some good quality calls. So then comes, when it comes to the 6 months of technical job support, I would say that currently there are 2 categories how people utilize it. So first category is, let's say you need some support in preparing for an interview, let's say helping in preparing for an interview. So let's say you got selected for an interview, but you need to go for a technical round. Before you going for technical round, we help you. We play a very important role here. So we ask for a discussion with you. We ask you to bring a JD, a job description, and we help you to provide insights in this particular JD, trying to understand what kind of questions you can able to expect. how are you going to answer these questions? Let's say you have mentioned some of the projects that we have built during the program. How are you going to deliver the story about that particular program during an interview? Because this is what exactly the confidence and the clarity what you need in order to clear this particular interview. This is literally working for us. You can listen to our previous batch testimonials. You can get an answer for that. The second type, how the 6 months of technical job support has been utilized. Let's say you're already working in a job, but you need some support, you need some documentation, you need some sample code, you need some consulting, you need some validation, so for the work that you're doing. So we do also support you in the 6 months of technical job support. That's how it works. So then comes, we do have another feature called bonus reattendance opportunity. Let's say you're going to take advance or advance plus plan. So we do have something called bonus reattendance opportunity, which is nothing but register once, but you take our program twice. So not only that, you can take the April batch. Let's say even after you completing an April batch, you can also retake this particular program again from scratch in a June batch also for free. What do you mean by this? So consider that. So there are multiple advantages. So consider that maybe like you might have missing some few live sessions. I mean, due to your busy working schedule, you might miss few weekend session. So you get another chance in a June. You can take this program completely from scratch again, right? You get twice the chances. In that way, you don't miss anything from this particular program. 100% you'll be completing everything from this particular program. So twice the chances, twice the debugging sessions basically, right? So this is about the bonus returns opportunity. And then comes the topmost plan. The topmost plan, everything in advance is included. Instead of you getting 1 year support, you'll be getting so instead of you getting 6 months support, you're getting 1 year support here, and bonus returns opportunity is also included. And here comes the most interesting feature that we do have here. It's called instant access to recordings. So you don't want to wait 2.5 months to complete a program, or you don't want to wait next 1 month to complete a program. That means basically 3.5 months to complete a program, because today is 20th of March. Still, we're going to start with our program on 30th of April. You don't want to wait till that. If you register for, let's say, advanced plus plan, instantly you're going to get an access to recordings of a previous batch in next 24 hours. That means in next 24 hours, you can get started with our program with the support from us. So this is a pricing structure, but let's say if you want to check the pricing structure in USD, let's say an advanced plus plan will start from $749. An advanced plan will start from $649, and basic plan is just starting from $599 actually. Okay, that's it. Without making a much delay, here comes, we do have some surprises. I would say an awesome surprises for the folks who have stayed till end of this particular program. So thank you so much for listening to my talk, but I do have a surprise for you. So every first week, okay, this is the first week we are running this campaign for this batch. Every first week we run a campaign. We do give offers for the first 10 registrations only, strictly for 10 registrations. Till 25th of March, this offer is applied. It's called free upgradation offer as part of a summer offer that we're giving. So 25th of March can be the deadline which you can able to climb this offer. So what do you mean by this offer? It's going to be really make your life easy, because most of the folks want to take either advanced plan or advanced plus, because this is where the more features lies. So let's say if you're interested in going for, let's say, an advanced plan, so don't register for advanced plan. As simple as that. Yes, all you need to do, this offer is for 10 registrations only, till strictly till 25th of March. All you need to do, are you looking for advanced plan? You do only one thing, go ahead and register for basic plan, which is costing just 40,999, and we will be upgrading you to advanced plan for free. That means you'll be saving around 3,000 rupees in a registration. Register for basic, you get advanced, as simple as that. But here comes the most interesting part. The same thing applies. Let's say, are you looking for the topmost plan, which is costing nearly 50,000 rupees? Yes, strictly for 10 registrations, just go ahead and register for advanced plan, which is costing 43,999, and we will be upgrading you to the topmost plan, that is advanced plus plan, completely for free. So this is the pricing structure that we do have. And why do you think we, that is Citron Technology, is the best people to get started with this particular program? We've been in this particular domain almost for the decade, and so we've been represent ourselves in a various different international stages, like FKCCI Bangalore, it can be Hilti International Awards, our Living Talent International Award. We've been part of AWS Activate program. And more than that, don't listen to my words. Just go ahead and listen to my previous batch participants' testimonials, because they speak for us. Then you can take a decision, obviously. So starting saying that, you can listen to testimonials, you can ask a couple of questions from us, and then you can able to take a decision. So quickly, let me share you a couple of links that you can able to access, and let me also open the session for quick Q&A so we can have a lot of discussion. Okay, I'm going to share the 3 links, where the first, as I promised, you can also download the free ebooks from that. Okay, here we go. So let me just start sharing these 3 links, and I will start also discussing about the awesome curriculum that we do have, because we need to discuss this curriculum. Let me just quickly share these links that I'm talking about. Okay, here are the links. Here is also my contact number that you can also use to contact me. Okay, I'm going to share this links in the chat window. Yes, here I have shared. Okay, the first link that I shared in the chat window, that's a registration link, which you can go ahead and proceed with the registration. The second link where you can able to download the curriculum, and the third link where you can able to download the free ebooks. The first link is for registration. Let me just also open this registration link. We'll have a quick tour on that. Okay, here we go. So once you go to the registration link, you'll be redirected to this particular console. You can able to check out all the details that we discussed right now. So yes, if you scroll down here, you can able to check the curriculum. So as I mentioned, we do have around 14 modules. I'm sorry, I might have mentioned 13 plus 1, because we do have the module number 11, that is MLOps for LLMs, is a new topic that we do have. Totally 13 modules. We'll have a quick look on this in a few minutes. Okay, here you can check. If you further scroll down here, you can able to check the testimonials of a previous batch participants. Listen to all those testimonials, so then you can able to take a decision. You can also check the testimonials from our groups. Yeah, so how do I register? So quickly go ahead and click register now button. By hitting that, you can just mention your name, your email address, your phone number, and hit next. And now you will be redirected to a registration page where you can start picking the plan that you're really interested in. So whether you're from India, you can pick the Indian participants ticket for basic, advanced, and advanced plus. Or if you're an international participant, you can able to pick the ticket that matches for your dollars. And yeah, so here you can also hit show more information to get to see what you get in this particular plan, and you can hit register now button, and you can able to pick again. So you just for the registration purpose, enter your details, and you can able to mention, I mean, which payment gateway which matches your requirements. Okay, so yeah, UPI, even EMI options is there. Just pick it and then proceed for the registration. Okay, here comes the awesome curriculum that we do have. Let's have a quick discussion on the curriculum. It's going to be really interesting. So you can also download this PDF through the link that I shared in a chat window. You can get everything in this particular PDF itself. Okay, let's go to curriculum section. Yep. Let's have a discussion about the interesting curriculum that we do have. So the module number 1, let's get started with the module number 1. So module number 1 is introduction to MLOps. This is where we will be diving deep into what is really MLOps, again talking about the challenges, the high level motivation. Then comes the very interesting part. We will be not just talking about MLOps itself, we'll be talking about what is this DevOps, what is this AI ops, model ops, LLM ops, and you might have not heard about something called FMOps. What is this? A lot of ops, right? FMOps stands for foundation model operations. We'll be also talking about that. Then comes Git ops, also we'll be discussing. And then comes, we'll be also discussing about the CI/CD production case study. We'll be discussing about the actual organizations, how they have implemented CI/CD on various different cloud platforms. So then comes module number 2. This is where we'll be talking about introduction to ML and MLOps stages. So this is where we'll be talking about versioning. What are the different kind of versionings we do? What are the different kind of testings we do? Automation in kind of CI/CD, reproducibility, deployment, and monitoring. Then comes MLOps architectures. This is where we'll be diving into a lot of open source tools, like talking about Kubeflow. What is Apache Airflow? MLflow, Metaflow, Kedros, ZenML, MLrun, and CML. Then comes, we'll be also discussing about the architectures on various different clouds like AWS, GCP, and Azure. Let's go to the module number 3, introduction to Git. This is where you will be diving deep into the Git. we'll be doing hands-on, understanding how to work with Git-based commands, how to work with remote repository, blah, blah, blah. Yep. So then comes module number 4, introduction to CI/CD. As I mentioned, DevOps is also included in this particular program, but DevOps for MLOps. We do cover DevOps on all the 3 cloud platforms with hands-on projects. We do cover all the DevOps tools on top of AWS with end-to-end DevOps project on top of AWS. We do cover the complete GCP DevOps tools with one DevOps pipelines on top of GCP. We'll be covering the complete Azure DevOps suite with one project on Azure. Then comes module number 5. This is where we'll be diving into Dockers and Kubernetes, understanding Dockers from scratch, understanding how to Dockerize your first ML model, how to deploy it, how to make a predictions. Then comes understanding Kubernetes from scratch, understanding how to work with Kubernetes infrastructure. Then comes deploying a Dockerized ML model on a Kubernetes infrastructure, playing with that. Then comes module number 6. Again, we do have Kubernetes deployment strategies. Here we'll be picking one of a cloud. It can be AWS or Azure or GCP. We'll be deploying and playing, creating a clusters on top of it and deploying an ML models on top of it. Then comes module number 7, introduction to model management. So this is where again we'll be talking about various different model management tools for data, code, experiment, model and model monitoring tools. And here comes the open source tool. We'll be covering MLflow, the must-have tool on your resume from scratch. There are 2 projects. The first project is deploying an MLflow stack. Then comes building, training and deploying your ML models through MLflow. Then comes, we will be covering DVC. DVC, again, a data version control tool, will be done on project, how to version your data and putting it on any one of a cloud, how to version the data from there. Then comes module number 8. We do have a separate module for feature store. Here we'll be learning various different feature stores that is outside in the market, starting from Feast feature store, SageMaker feature store, Vertex AI, a lot of other things. And we'll be picking the very famous open source Feast feature store. We'll be building our own feature store on top of it. Here comes the module number 9, the Cloud ML Servers 101. This is where we'll be using the cloud platforms to build the level 4 architecture projects. So we'll be using Amazon SageMaker pipeline, the SageMaker studio that I showed you, to build end-to-end MLOps pipelines. On top of GCP, we'll be using Vertex AI. We'll be learning Vertex AI to be building end-to-end MLOps pipelines. And then comes, when it comes to Azure, we'll be using Azure Machine Learning Studio to build end-to-end MLOps pipelines on top of it. So then comes module number 10. We do have Kubeflow. If you understand what is Kubeflow, Kubeflow is a framework that runs on Kubernetes infrastructure. We'll be also covering 2 projects in a Kubeflow, but here I have mentioned one. One is deploying the Kubeflow infrastructure, then comes building end-to-end ML pipelines on top of Kubeflow infrastructure. Then comes module number 11, the new module for the next batch that we are having, that is MLOps for LLMs. So here we will be discussing about what is LLMs and how you can able to adapt MLOps for LLMs, because LLMOps, what we're talking about, is just an extension of LLMOps. So we'll be talking about the high level view of LLMOps and how do you build LLMOps pipeline. So then comes module number 12. Here, introduction to model monitoring. Here we have a separate module for model monitoring. We'll be discussing about the SDKs that cloud offers in terms of AWS, Azure and GCP, and we'll picking one of a tool and we'll be doing model monitoring, end-to-end ML model monitoring on one of a cloud for monitoring your ML models that is deployed to production. Then comes module number 13. As we discussed, we'll be also covering the commercial tools, but we'll be doing a demo on a commercial tools because you cannot afford commercial tools. Then comes the final module, the module number 14, the post-deployment challenges. What are the different challenges that you're going to face after you deploying your ML models? So software engineering related challenges, ML engineering related challenges. Then comes, we'll be also using open source tools like Evidently AI for monitoring your ML models that is in a production. So you can also check out other details that are skills that you're going to master in this particular program, the kind of tools that we're going to learn. So skills like starting from DevOps, AWS DevOps, GCP DevOps, tools like Dockers, Kubernetes, DVC, LLMOps, FMOps, Evidently AI, Kubeflow, etc. You can just check the kind of tools that we'll be working with and the kind of the cloud tools that we're going to be working with. And then you can also check the program fee, the features that we do offer, both in INR and USD here. and explanation of all those features. And you can also check out the testimonials here. By clicking these videos, you can also watch and listen to the testimonials that we do have. Okay. So now, before I'm showing how to deploy your model to because still I haven't showed my how to deploy my model to production. I will be opening a session for Q&A. So go ahead and ask your question. So you can go ahead and unmute your mic, ask as many questions that you have. So I'm ready to answer. So when you're mentioning your questions, please do mention your job role, whether you're a student or working professional, your name, and then you can ask your question. So meantime, I will answer the questions that is there in the chat window. So go ahead and ask your questions. Unmute your mic. Let's have a talk. So in the meantime, I'm going to just read some of the commands that you folks have shared so I can start answering these questions. So I'm going to share these links once again in a chat window. The first link is for registration. The second link is for the curriculum. The third link where you can download the free ebooks. And below is my contact number. I would recommend you folks to call me because we can have a detailed conversation. So because if you need some idea, because you might be coming from various different domains, you might be a DevOps engineer, you might be a data scientist. How does it work for you? What does your future looks like? What is your plan for next 1 to 5 years? You want to have some detailed discussion, please do call me to either these numbers. We'll have a conversation even after this call actually. Okay. Yeah. Perfect. Okay, so let me just discuss some of the questions. Okay, here we have Sundar Raj. He says, okay, I'm a senior product manager with 25 years of experience. The product that I'm working in my company is AI/ML based radio access network for GI. I have an engineering team. How does a course help? So definitely Sundar Raj, because let's say you're working on a 4G 5G technology to implement an AI ML systems on top of it. So consider that at the end of the day, you're going to produce some kind of a model which is going to add a value to your customers, but you're not going to stick to the one version of a model, and you need to have some kind of an automation, correct? You need to have some kind of an automation to deploy and manage this ML model that you're deployed to the production. How do you going to do that? Are you going to do each and every time manually? That's not the process. This is where MLOps pipelines kicks in, which you can able to implement automation however it works. Maybe your organization want to go open source, on premises, cloud. This program can able to help you upskill your skills accordingly. Okay, Harvind asking a question: How important is coding for data science and ML engineering? Do I need to be fingertip with a code and the libraries? I'm okay. So here is my answer for that. Okay, it depends. Okay, let me just help you how it works. Okay, here is a question. I'm going to make it more. I'm going to make some additionals to that. I'm going to answer. So you might be a DevOps engineer, correct? Let's say, for example, you might be a DevOps engineer, you might be a software engineer, but you might be a data scientist, you might be a data engineer. So do I need to be an expert in data science? Do I need to be an expert in data science, like Python programming, learning about algorithms, statistics, and probability? Let's say if you're going to apply yourself for MLOps engineer, probably not, because let's say when you're going to work as an MLOps engineer, you're not the one. Someone who's going to build an ML model is someone called data scientist who is going to build an ML model. But as an MLOps engineer, you will be taking care of building pipelines, managing the infrastructure, all this stuff. But yes, you need to have an idea of what exactly a data scientist is going, but not exactly you need to become a data scientist, because here you are not the only person who will be doing everything. It's not possible, because data scientists will be responsible for building ML models, producing the quality results. Then comes an MLOps engineer, someone who's building pipelines, take care of infrastructure, all those stuff. Here we have MLOps engineers. Some organizations, they will have a role called MLOps engineer. They will be taking a model from data scientist and they will be deploying it, right? So that's how it's going to work. So I would really recommend, based on what criteria, the kind of a job role that you're coming from, then you can able to structure accordingly. So let's say if you're going to say this, okay, I am a data scientist, do I need to have a good Python programming skill sets, algorithms, and statistics? Definitely, I would say 100% yes. If you're a data scientist, you need to have an in-depth knowledge on Python programming, statistics, algorithms, everything. But when it comes to MLOps engineer, definitely not. right? You don't need to have such an expertise, but you need to have some idea of what they're doing. That ideology, you're going to get it in this particular program. But again, when it comes to MLOps specialization program, so this is not a data science program. So here we don't teach you data science. Here we don't teach you Python programming. Here it is purely into MLOps. We'll be teaching everything that is related to an MLOps for you to become a expert. But that doesn't mean we don't build ML models. Yes, we do data engineering here. We do ML model training from scratch, but we don't get into the nuance of how this algorithm works, right? Yep, that's how it works. Okay, I do have another question from Jay Prashant. Folks, you can also unmute your mic and we can have a conversation. If you're okay with that, please do. So Jay Prashant is asking, I'm a data engineer. I want to know how much time it takes to develop the model from a scratch to until deployment. So like, Jay Prashant, I would say that like you can able to quickly, let's say it depends on a data that you do have, Jay Prashant. You can able to quickly, let's say I have a very simple data set, I can able to quickly develop a model in few minutes. That's possible. And in next few minutes, you can go ahead and deploy your ML model. That's possible. But when it comes to the real-time perspective, the kind of a data that you have, let's say you might have terabytes of data, you might have a data pipelines. First, you need to get the data, clean it, prepare it, figure out the best quality features, and then you go ahead and build an ML model, optimize it, experiment it, optimize it, produce a best ML model. Then you go ahead and deploy it and monitor it. Again, I have an automation for that. So definitely it's going to take, let's say once you have an ML model, for an average, it takes in 7 to 9 months, at least 9 months for every industry to get into the production basically. So Diksha says, I'm an automation engineer. I want to know the MLOps can help in UI automation and desktop application. Okay, see, like when it comes to MLOps, that has nothing to do with the kind of the testing that you're doing, Diksha. Let's say you're doing you're an automation engineer, you're doing some UI automation for desktop application. MLOps is completely different. So I guess you're looking into the wrong part. MLOps, what we're talking about, a machine learning operations. It's an automation that you can build to deliver your machine learning models to the production, basically. Okay, I'm going to read a few more questions, the chat window. Okay. Okay, so here we do have a question from Naga. So instead of so many open source tools, any cloud managed services for ML deployment and all? Yes, Naga, as we discussed, AWS, Azure, and GCP, they have the cloud managed tools like SageMaker in AWS, Azure Machine Learning Studio in Azure, Vertex AI in GCP, which you can able to use it actually. So Nagaza, MLOps tool set is greater than DevOps tools. Yes, definitely, because when it comes to DevOps tools, we can say that, okay, source code version tools or maybe CI/CD tools or maybe some testing tools, but definitely when it comes to MLOps, we do have many tools that we're going to consider apart from let's say what we have in DevOps actually. So go ahead and ask your questions. I'm going to spare a few more minutes. So in the meantime, you guys wait. I'm going to show you how to deploy your ML model to production. If you want to deploy your ML model to production environment, this is what exactly we do. Let's say according to our architecture, our pipelines are running on code pipelines. We need to go to a code pipeline section. And here is our pipeline for model deployment is actually waiting. I'm going to click on this pipeline, which is actually in progress. I'm going to click on this pipeline, which is in a progress. And you can able to see the DevOps, the kind of a DevOps pipeline that we do have here. So to deploy this model, so here we have a source where we are getting a source code from. Here is a build process where we are actually building, and here is a deployment staging. And you can see that my model is not yet approved and not deployed to prod. It is waiting for my product, waiting for my approval to deploy. I'm going to quickly hit on this review button to review my request, and I'm going to say quickly deploy. You can see I have two radio buttons, one for deploy, one for reject. I'm going to hit approve button, and here you can just mention some commands if you want to go ahead and mention, okay, I've done some testing, okay, everything's okay, and I will simply hit submit to deploy this ML model to the production. As simple as that. So now you can see that, so now I have approved my model to be deployed to the production. It's going to take again a few minutes to go ahead and deploy this model to production. You can also monitor the status of this deployment again in the studio that we are working with. So once you go to your studio, let's say once you go to under endpoints, if I hit refresh, a tiny refresh button, we should able to notice that your model is getting deployed to the production. We can able to observe that. So go ahead and ask your questions. I'm going to spare a few more minutes. Unmute your mic. We can also talk. Yeah, now you can see that we do have the model that is getting into the production right now. It says it's creating. That's perfect. It's going to take again a minute for deployment. Let's wait. So in the meantime, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm going to spare a few more minutes for you. Okay, so here we do have a testimonial of one of our previous batch participants. I'm also going to play that in a few minutes. Okay, here we have one more question from Jay Prashant. He says, "Thank you so much, Sharad. I have one more question. For example, I have 1 million record. I have 1 million records. I have one to use, like remove some record based on some conditions. For example, I don't know anything LLM. Where can I start?" Okay, so let's say when you're talking about processing your data, let's say you have 1 million records, probably you need to use some big data tools like Hadoop systems where you have a chance to process a huge amount of data. Let's say in case if you want to train this 1 million records, then you want to build an LLM out of it. That's a different ball game. But here you're talking about removing one record from it, maybe like data cleaning. So then you need to look for big data tools for processing such a huge amount of data. Okay, so Syed is asking a question. Hi Sharad, can we also create infrastructure as a code for a MLOps? Definitely yes, Syed. We will be using infrastructure as a code in this particular program. Infrastructure as a code is covered because the kind of a pipelines that we're going to build in this particular program. So let's say what we're going to do in AWS or Azure, especially in Azure, we'll be playing with infrastructure as a code. So just deploying an infrastructure that is needed for you. Let's say you need a virtual machine, you need a studio, you need a container, you need a storage platform. One option is you can go ahead and create it everything manually. Otherwise, you write an infrastructure as a code, you deploy that infrastructure code, you have an infrastructure created for that. Yes, that's been covered, Syed, here. And again, so please make a note, and this free upgradation offer is strictly till 25th of March. And again, even though if it is 25th of March, but we do have that for first 10 registrations only. And we have already started registrations before. This is the first demo for this batch, but we already started our registration before we conducting a demo session because there's a lot of traction already. People are calling us, and so people who called us in advance, we have revealed this offers. And let me just repeat this offer once again. So if you're interested in, let's say, advanced plan, don't register for advanced plan. Just go ahead and register for basic plan, and we will be upgrading you to advanced plan for completely for free. So where you can save around 3,000 rupees. Same thing, let's say if you're interested in the topmost plan, which is costing 50,000 rupees, don't register for that. Just go ahead and register for, let's say, an advanced plan, which is costing just 43,999, and we will be upgrading you to the topmost plan, which is costing 49,999. You can say around 6,000 rupees over there. Yep. So this is it. Just make sure you ask your question. Let me just quickly check whether my model is deployed so I can play the testimonial for you folks. Okay. Okay, let me just quickly refresh. Yeah, so my model got been deployed to production. Let me just also quickly copy the script in the same way. This is a simple script I'm using to invoke my ML model that is deployed to production. So let me just also copy the name of a endpoint. So I'm just copying the name of my endpoint. I'm inputting in the script. So the script will help me to invoke the model. And this is my test data that I have here. So if I save it, if I run it, I should get the same prediction. You can see that 8.86 is because I have deployed the same model both in staging and environment. There's nothing much different than that. I'm going to spare few more minutes. Just go ahead and ask your question. I'm just going to play this testimonial in the meantime.
maybe you can just give some idea about what is that company that you applied first, so then we can talk about the ML engineering job role what they're asked for you.
So I apply for the AI/ML role for artificial / machine learning engineer.
Okay.
So there also cloud part also there. So they require cloud part and Docker. So they asked me question related to Docker. To Kubernetes, and on basis of AWS, they asked me the full CI/CD pipeline, how it works, and how one question is how we stop CI/CD pipeline. What is the procedure for stopping? It is possible manually or not? So that types of, or they said with how you deploy. From dev to production, how can you deploy? Such type of question they asked me that interview. So I give all the questions with the help of your teaching on this, sir.
Perfect. I'm really happy for that. Okay, so I'm really happy for that. That's good. So what's the company name that you mentioned?
SA Technology.
SA Technology. So based out of?
In Mumbai.
Mumbai, perfect. So you're also from Mumbai, right?
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
that's good. So now you're asking questions. So now you have a 20 days of time. Because the joining date. So you're asking, okay, can I able to apply for other job roles like MLOps engineer or something?
Yes,
definitely. Please do apply. So even if there's a better package, yes, why not, right? So you can also look for the better opportunity. So please go ahead, as you usually do, apply for this jobs and share us a job description if you need any insights on that. I'm very much happy to provide that. Okay. Yeah. So that's really awesome. And is there any other questions that you need to ask?
Okay, sir.
So purely. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Now onward from tomorrow today, I apply based on my.
Hello, Rahul. Hello.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so that's why I call you regarding that. Can I apply now all full-fledged on for MLOps?
Yeah. Please proceed. Still we have to cover a few more things on MLOps. Still we have to cover AWS MLOps, that full-fledged project that we might cover in the next.
Okay, you can listen to this testimonial obviously by clicking on the links that we have shared in the PDF. So what Rahul is doing, so he's our previous batch candidate. He could able to crack a job even after completing a 70% of curriculum. We are still in a transit, but he could able to do that. So we do have more testimonials like this. Go ahead and listen to them, so you get a confidence and clarity regarding our training. Yep. Please let me know. I'm going to spare 2 more minutes if you have any questions. I'm going to share this link once again in the chat window. Please do call me if you need any the clarifications before you proceeding with the registration. Yeah, give me a call. I can able to help you with that, folks. Yeah. Yep. So again, so the dates are this. So we'll be getting started with this particular program starting from April 13th. We'll be starting our live sessions, as I mentioned, every Saturday, Sunday, starting from 11 p.m. IST, 7 p.m. IST to 11 p.m. IST. We'll be having the live sessions, and the program structure is this. Every weekend, you do have a live session. Every Monday, you'll get access to recordings. Every weekdays, you get a chance to debug it. You can able to attend 101 debugging sessions. So it's a 360-degree view of. Yes, I guess someone is trying to ask a question. So please go ahead.
You showed over there one model kept into the production, but once a developer develops, there are different environments like as a testing, old and other. In case of a CI/CD and that things deployment, how it could be done?
First thing, I would request you to just mention your name, then you could ask a question. And I would suggest you to talk a bit louder because there's some background noise. I couldn't able to hear you clearly. Hello? Thank you, Sundaraj, for your feedback. You're welcome. Yep. Okay, thank you so much. So I guess someone is trying to ask a question. Sorry, I couldn't able to get it because of the background noise. Maybe if you can able to repeat once again, it would definitely help. So Syed, you can able to access the recordings of this session on our own portal. So you don't have to worry about that. Okay, I'm going to spare just one more minute. If you guys have questions, please repeat. Okay, it's a 360-degree view of MLOps. I would suggest you folks to do a quick validation. So what you can able to do, so it's a program that covers multi-cloud with open source tools also. We got covered everything that is needed for MLOps. For the quick validation, you can just go to LinkedIn, do Google search for the MLOps engineering job roles, take a curriculum and take the job description keywords, try to compare it. You'll get to know that we got covered everything that is needed for the job. So thank you so much, folks, for your time. If you have any questions, please let me know. Please unmute your mic and talk to me. So I'm going to spare one more minute. It's 9:19. I will be sparing a time till 9:20. And if you have some technical difficulties, feel free to mention your question in a chat window. Otherwise, give me a call to the number that I've shared. I'll be available for you to answer your questions, folks. Okay, Sundaraj asking question, should I attend or should I ask one more engineering team member? Okay, Sundaraj asking question, should I attend or should I ask one of my engineering team member, build engineer to join? Okay, so I mean, Sundaraj, it depends on you. So consider that so I didn't get your question in the first thing. So let's say if you are looking for this particular program, let's say if you are going to be part of AI industry, let's say you're going to play a role in maybe building ML models, ML engineering, or MLOps engineer, and maybe someone who's going to work on the operation side. So in AI industry, definitely the MLOps program is definitely for you, because it can be any possible people, someone who's going to be part of AI industry. Maybe you are a data scientist, data engineer, data analyst, research, AI or applied scientist, ML engineer. You can be a DevOps engineer, aspiring ML professionals, and maybe someone who is really interested to get into the AI industry. This is for you. Okay, Sundar says, I mean, should having 25 years of product management experience, or should I ask my engineer team to join? I mean, so let's say it both works for you, also for your engineering team, Sundaraj, because let's say if you have 25 years of experience, definitely that's not a problem. Let's say if someone who has more than 7+ or 8+ years of experience, I would recommend you folks to focus on the senior level positions in MLOps, like MLOps lead engineer, MLOps architect, MLOps specialist kind of a roles, where you can be also part of Sundaraj, basically. Basically, like let's say if you're going to ask a question, so who gets to decide which kind of a tool to be used in this organization? Basically, the people's in a senior position used to do that, actually. Yeah. Okay, folks, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate. I believe you had wonderful evening, or maybe in whatever the country that you're joining from. So thank you so much. If you have any further questions, feel free to just ping me anytime. I'll be here to help you. So this will be my contact number. Thank you so much. Have fun, and we'll connect back in our live sessions.